What up, everybody? Instructabeats back again here with another fraction lesson. Today we're going to be looking at what is a fraction and how can I write it to represent it. So let's build a fraction and check out our objective today. Our objective today I will be able to understand how to write a fraction that represents a part of a whole. And that's really important. But first, let's have some story time, okay? So here is a rectangular pizza that I baked last night, right? This is one whole pizza, okay? Now, unfortunately, I am not allowed to eat the whole pizza at once because I couldn't fit all of that in my mouth anyway. Plus, my family also wanted some, right? So unfortunately, I had to split it into equal parts. So how many equal parts make up my one whole pizza now, right? Well, you can see I split it into 8 equal parts. So if you were with us our last lesson, we learned that we could call that eighths. And what is the value of each equal part of the whole pizza? Well, each of these pieces is worth 1 out of 8 total, right? So we have 1/8, as we would say. This piece is worth 1/8. This piece is worth 1/8, and they're all worth 1/8. Because they're equal, right? We made them the same size. One is not bigger than the other one, okay? So each of these would be worth 1/8. And if you were with us last lesson, we learned that that is called a unit fraction. A unit fraction is what each equal part of the whole is worth. So I have 8 total pieces, and each of them would be worth 1 out of those 8, right? So we write it like this. We call that a unit fraction. Now, enough math. Let's eat some pizza. So here you can see that I had 8 pieces, right? And I just ate 2 of those. These 2 are now in my belly. They're gone, right? So first of all, let me go ahead and write down the unit fraction again on each piece so we can remember what each of these pieces is worth, okay? And even the pieces that I put in my belly, they're still worth 1/8, right? Because I ate 1 out of 8 pieces, and I actually ate 2 of them, but we'll talk about that in a second. So what part of my pizza is left over? Okay, well, you can see that I have 6 pieces left over, so we would write that as 6 out of 8, or 6/8, right? I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eights left over. And how many did I actually eat? How many is in my belly? That would be 2 out of 8, or 2/8. So you can see I just made a fraction here to represent what I ate, and I made a fraction here to represent what was left over. We can use fractions to represent values that are less than one whole. Let's take a closer look at these fractions and what they really mean. Okay, so here's a fraction, and you can see that our fraction is made up of 2 different numbers, right, with a line between them. And I color coded them just to kind of help us to learn them. But the top of our fraction is called the numerator, and the bottom of our fraction is called the denominator. If you don't remember those math terms, think D for down. So that's how I remember the denominator is on the bottom. Now, these both tell us information about our fraction. Our denominator tells us how many pieces one whole is split into. So during our story time, right, our whole pizza was split into 8 pieces. So that's why the denominator is an 8. Here, whatever we're splitting up is going to have 6 total pieces that make up the whole. Our numerator tells us the number of unit fractions that make up our fraction. So here for 4/6, I would have 4 pieces, right, that make that fraction up. So go ahead and pause the video, write down this math vocabulary, and then let's take a look at it in action so you can understand it a little bit better. All right, so pizzas just don't come rectangle, right? They can also come in circles. So when we talk about one whole, it doesn't always have to be a rectangle, be a circle. It could really be anything, okay? And if we wanted to split this up into equal pieces, and I'll do my best here. I might have to adjust it in a second. You can see I just split that up into 4 equal pieces. So we would call that fourths, right? So the value of each of these would be 1 out of 4, right? My denominator is telling me how many total pieces that make up my whole now. And my numerator tells me how many unit fractions I'm talking about. Well, here I have 1 unit fraction, so that's why I put 1/4. This piece has a value of 1/4. This piece has a value of 1/4. And this piece has a value of 1/4. So now let me highlight a couple of them, right? So let's say that I highlight the parts that I ate, right? So here I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to eat this part and that part. There we go. Highlighted that. If I'm trying to write down the fraction of the value that I ate, or the part that is highlighted, I'll put that here, okay? Hopefully I spelled that right. My denominator would be 4 because my total pizza was split into 4 equal pieces. And my numerator would be 2 because I need 2 unit fractions to make up the part that I ate, right? So my numerator is 2 because that's the number of unit fractions I need to make the fraction that I'm talking about. And my denominator, of course, would be 4 because that's the total number that make up one whole. The part that would be left over would also be 2 out of 4, right? Because my denominator is 4, and then I would have 2 unit fractions that make up the part that's left over. So my numerator is telling me the number of unit fractions that I need to build this fraction. That's why we call the unit fraction the building block of a fraction, right? It's how many parts make up the fraction that I'm talking about. So life can't always be pizza, right? So let's take a look at another example of a fraction. So here I have one whole backyard, okay? Maybe it's made out of AstroTurf, and I'm gonna mow some, okay? So I'm gonna mow, and I'm gonna leave some that's not mowed, I guess, if you will. So when you're mowing, you make straight lines, hopefully, if you do it right. And so here I've split my yard into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal pieces, right? So this is going to be 8s again. There we go. And each of these is going to have a value of 1/8. So I'm actually going to write it on top here because I'm going to shade this in a second. But each of these equal pieces has a value of 1 out of 8, or 1/8, right? So this would be a unit fraction. So let's say I'm mowing, and I mowed this part. Apparently when I mow it, it turns black. I don't think I would do that, but just for the sake of math, we'll do that. And let's say I stopped right here and I ran out of gas, right? So what fraction did I mow? Well, my denominator is going to be 8 because my whole backyard was split into 8 equal pieces. And I mowed 1, 2, 3 of them. So I need 3 unit fractions, right, that make up this fraction. So the part that I mowed would be 3/8. Which means the part that I did not mow, my denominator would still be 8. And I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces that I did not mow. So I would need 5 unit fractions to help me build this fraction right here. So the fraction that I just built was 5/8. I mowed 3 out of 8 pieces, and I did not mow 5 out of 8, right? So mowed 3/8, did not mow 5/8. So because typically in math class, right, you're not going to be talking about mowing lawns and pizzas. You might just be dealing with shapes. Here we have 3 different fractions, and let's do this one together, right? This one should be in your notes. And I forgot to shade this in, so I'm going to go ahead and shade in one of these parts, okay? Here I'm going to split this into 2 parts. There we go. I'm not going to shade any. And here I'll shade 1, 2, 3, 4 down here. Okay, there we go. So let's start right here with this rectangle. What fraction is shaded? Well, obviously my denominator is going to be 4 because I have 4 equal pieces that make this up, right? And each of these pieces is going to be worth 1/4, even the part that I shaded in. So I had 1 unit fraction shaded in, so the shaded part is 1/4. My unshaded part, okay, is going to be 1, 2, 3 unit fractions that build that part up. So I'm going to write down 3/4 because my numerator is the number of unit fractions I need to build the fraction that I'm talking about. So I needed 3 unit fractions to build my unshaded part. So I shaded 1/4 and did not shade 3/4. Here for my triangle, you can see that I shaded 0 out of 2 pieces, right? Each of these is worth 1/2. That's my unit fraction for this. And so what is the unshaded part? Well, that would be 2 out of 2, or 1 whole. So here for this bottom one, now this is a funky looking shape, and we never said the shapes had to be regular, okay? So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal pieces make up the whole, whatever this whole is, okay? And so each of these is going to be worth 1/6. There we go. My bad handwriting and all. So how many were shaded? There were 4 unit fractions shaded out of 6, right? So shaded would be 4/6. In the unshaded, I had 2 parts that were not shaded out of 6 that made up the whole. So shaded part 4, 6, unshaded part 2, 6. Hopefully you're getting a good understanding of what the numerator and denominator is, and when we write a fraction, why we write it that way, and hopefully you're even writing them yourself now with a good understanding. So here's our you try problem. Go ahead and pause the video. Okay, try to answer these questions. You're going to be doing the same thing we just did, writing the fraction for the shaded part and the unshaded part. I do recommend labeling the unit fraction on each piece before you answer the question. That kind of helps get your brain going. So go ahead and pause it and then push play when you're ready to check your work. So hopefully you just paused it. Now you're checking your work. So here I can see that I have 6 total pieces. So each of these is going to be worth 1/6. Okay. And I have 2 out of those 6 shaded. And I have 4, 6 not shaded. So hopefully you got that one right. All right. Here for this next one, we have a rectangle or a brownie. And you can see that it's split into 4 equal parts, right? So my unit fraction is going to be 1/4 because each of those parts is a value of 1/4. And I have 3 out of those 4 shaded, right? I needed 3 unit fractions to make 3/4 that were shaded. And I had 1/4 that was not shaded. All right. And then here we have a pentagon, and I can see that I split it into 10 equal pieces. So each of these pieces is a unit fraction that has a value of 1/10. There we go. You will not be able to read any of that because I'm writing so small, but I'm going to pretend like I'm writing 1/10 for each of them. And you can see I have 3 unit fractions that are shaded, so that's going to be 3/10 that are shaded. And I have 7 unit fractions that are not shaded, so that's going to be 7/10 that are not shaded. So hopefully you got those right, but if not, it's okay to fail as long as you learn from it. Let's check out our key thought from this lesson. This is how we write a fraction using the numerator and denominator. Remember, a fraction can help us represent values that are less than 1 whole. So our numerator tells us the number of unit fractions that make up our fraction, and the denominator tells us how many pieces 1 whole is split into. Thank you so much for checking us out today. We know there's lots of different options online. We really appreciate you spending your time with Instructabeats. We'd love for you to check out our website, hit the subscribe button and the like, leave a comment, let us know where you're watching from. Check out all our merchandise at our store. We appreciate you so much. Again, thank you so much. Instructabeats out.